betrayal didn't just break my heart. It incinerated the very foundation of my world, leaving nothing but the acrid smoke of shattered trust. My daughter helped my wife cheat with her rich friend's dad, and to twist the knife until it snapped, my own family sided with them, claiming I simply wasn't ambitious or rich enough for their refined tastes. This ain't a story I tell often, and it sure as hell ain't a pretty one. It still feels like a damn bad dream I can't quite shake, even now, a couple of years down the line, lurking in the shadows of my mind like a predator. It all started kind of slow, you know, like a leaky faucet you ignore until the whole damn floor is flooded and the wood begins to rot and buckle beneath your feet. My wife Lisa and my daughter Emily were my entire world, the dual suns I orbited around. Emily was 20 at the time, a bright kid, or so I thought in my foolish, blinded pride. She was full of life, always glued to her glowing phone, always wanting the latest. Well, everything that money could buy to fill an empty soul. Lisa, we've been married 22 years. Ups and downs like any marriage, but I truly thought we were solid as granite, forged in the fires of 2 decades. I run a small, honest landscaping business. It's grueling, back-breaking work that gets deep under your fingernails, but it pays the bills and keeps food on the table. We weren't rich, not by a long shot, but we had enough to be happy. We had each other. Or so I believed with every fiber of my being. Emily had this best friend since high school, Olivia. Nice girl, always polite and soft-spoken. Olivia's dad, a guy named Richard Thorne, he was loaded beyond any reasonable measure. Owned a string of successful software companies and lived in a massive, cold house up on the hill, the whole 9 yards of sterile luxury. He was a widower. Olivia's mom passed away when she was just a kid. Richard, he always seemed like a decent enough guy. Quiet, kept to himself mostly. Saw him at a few school functions over the years. Never thought much of him beyond the high walls and iron gates of his estate. The first little niggle of doubt, the first thing that felt fundamentally off, was Lisa and Emily suddenly having all this new, expensive stuff. There were designer bags for Lisa, new high-tech gadgets for Emily, and fancy dinners out that I knew we couldn't afford on my modest income and Lisa's part-time job at the library. When I'd ask, Lisa would just wave it off with a practiced, hollow smile. Oh, Emily got a bonus from her part-time tutoring. Or, I found this amazing sale. Honey, you wouldn't believe the bargain. Emily would just roll her eyes and say, Dad, chill. It's fine, making me feel like a paranoid intruder in my own home. They started spending a lot of time together, Lisa and Emily, more than usual, whispering, giggling, always huddled over Emily's phone like co-conspirators planning a heist. If I walked into the room, they'd clam up instantly and exchange these weird, knowing little looks. I put it down to mother-daughter stuff, you know, secrets, inside jokes. Didn't want to be the suspicious, overbearing husband and dad. Then Lisa started changing her entire persona. There was a new hairstyle, more makeup, dressing a bit flashier, and she was out a lot. Book club, she'd say, or late shift at the library, or helping Emily with a project. Emily, too, was suddenly always out with Olivia or studying at Olivia's house. The excuses, they started to feel thin, stretched to the absolute breaking point. The real gut punch, the moment the floor dropped out from under me, came on a random Tuesday afternoon. I'd finished a big landscaping job early, decided to head home, maybe surprise Lisa, take her out for an early dinner. I pulled into our driveway, and there, parked right in front of our little bungalow, was Richard Thorne's sleek silver Mercedes. My heart did a weird, sickening little thump. What was he doing here? I let myself in quietly. The house was still, too still. Then I heard it. Laughter. Lisa's laughter. That light, airy sound I used to love, and a deeper chuckle. Richard Thorne's, coming from our bedroom. Man, I can't even describe the feeling. It was like ice water and boiling oil being poured into my veins at the same time. Part of me wanted to turn around, just walk out, pretend I hadn't seen, hadn't heard. But another part, a darker, angrier part, it just took over like a tidal wave. I walked down the hall, my boots silent on the worn carpet. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open, and there they were, Lisa and Richard Thorne in my bed. Our bed, tangled up, oblivious. I didn't shout, didn't scream. I think I just stopped breathing. The world went quiet, all except for the deafening roaring in my ears. They saw me then. Lisa's eyes went wide, a strangled little gasp escaping her lips. Richard Thorne. He just looked annoyed like I was an inconvenient interruption to his afternoon schedule. He actually had the gall to pull the sheet up a bit higher as if that was the problem. Mike, Lisa whispered, her voice all shaky. It's not what it looks like. I almost laughed. Almost. Not what it looks like, Lisa. My voice sounded like gravel. It looks like my wife is screwing another man in our goddamn bed. What am I missing? Richard Thorne? He just sighed like I was being unreasonable. Look, Mike, let's not make a scene. There's a perfectly reasonable explanation for reasonable. I cut him off. You think any part of this is reasonable, Thorne? That's when Emily walked in. Emily, my daughter, she just stood in the doorway, phone in her hand, a weird, almost satisfied little smirk on her face. Oh, She said like she just walked in on us watching a boring TV show. "You're home early, Dad." The smirk, that's what broke me. The realization just slammed into me like a runaway truck. She knew. She knew about this. "You?" I pointed a shaking finger at her. "You knew about this? You let this happen?" Emily just shrugged. That same infuriatingly casual air. "Dad, don't be so dramatic. Mom deserves to be happy. And Mr. Thorne, he makes her happy. He can give her things you can't." Things I can't. I stared at her at my own daughter. This stranger standing in front of me. "You mean money? Is that what this is about? You sold out your mother, your family for what? A new phone, some fancy clothes?" Lisa started crying then. Proper, manipulative crocodile tears. "Mike, don't talk to her like that. It wasn't like that. Richard has been very generous to us. To both of us." Generous. That was the sickening word she used. It all came out then in a torrent of ugly, self-serving justifications. How Emily had become close to Olivia, and through Olivia, to Richard. How Richard, lonely and rich, had taken a shine to Lisa. How Emily, my own flesh and blood, had facilitated it, encouraged it, arranged their little trysts, covered for her mother, and in return, shopping sprees, spa days, allowances that were more than my weekly paycheck. They'd been at it for 5 months. 5 months of lies, deceit, all happening right under my goddamn nose with my own daughter as the damn puppet master. I looked at Lisa, at the woman I'd shared my life with, built a home with. So this is it, huh? 22 years down the drain for him? For a bigger bank account. She actually had the nerve to look indignant. "It's not just about the money, Mike. Richard, he understands me. He appreciates me. He doesn't spend all his time covered in dirt and smelling of fertilizer." And Emily, she chimed in. "Yeah, Dad, let's be real. Your landscaping business, it's cute, but it's not exactly going to get us that trip to Paris Moms always wanted. Is it? Is it cute? My life's work. My dignity. Cute." I didn't say another word. Just turned around, walked out of that bedroom, out of that house. Left them there with their generosity and their understanding. I drove. Just drove until the city lights were a blur. Ended up at Olivia's place. Richard, Thorne's daughter. The irony wasn't lost on me. I didn't know what else to do, where else to go. Olivia opened the door. She looked pale. "Guilty. Mr. Henderson," she said, her voice small. I'm so sorry." "You knew?" I asked, the words catching in my throat. She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. I found out a few weeks ago. Dad's been different, spending a lot of money. And Emily, she's been bragging about all the stuff." I confronted Dad. He admitted it, and he told me. He told me Emily helped set it all up. That she told him your wife was unhappy. That she was looking for an escape. She continued, her voice choked with shame. "I didn't know what to do. He's my dad. But it's wrong, Mr. Henderson. So wrong. He's been giving them so much money. Money that should have been for my college fund, for our future. And your wife, she's still married to you. It's disgusting. I couldn't live with it. That's why I called you. I left you that anonymous voicemail earlier telling you to go home." So that was it. The final piece. Olivia, the innocent bystander, the one with an actual conscience. She was the one who tried to warn me. I thanked her, told her it wasn't her fault. Then I left. The next few days, weeks, they were a blur of pain, anger, and a cold, hard resolve building in my gut. Lisa and Emily, they didn't even try to contact me. Not a word. They just carried on living in my house, spending Thorne's money like I never even existed. My parents, when they found out. And you can bet Lisa and Emily spun them some sob story about how I was the unreasonable one. They were disappointingly predictable. "Well, Mike," my mom said, that tone of hers that always made me feel about 10 years old. "Maybe if you'd been a bit more ambitious, a bit more like Richard Thorne, this wouldn't have happened. A woman needs security, dear." My dad just mumbled something about modern relationships and how I should try to be understanding. Understanding, right? But here's the thing they all underestimated. I might be a landscaper. I might get my hands dirty for a living. But I'm not stupid, and I'm not a doormat. They wanted money. They wanted a fancy lifestyle. Fine. Let's see how they like it when the well runs dry. First, I got a lawyer, a good one. Aggressive. We filed for divorce immediately. And we went after everything I was entitled to. The house that was in my name, bought long before Emily was even born. The joint accounts which Lisa had been steadily draining for her little shopping sprees with Thorne's cash. We froze those. Then I started looking into Richard Thorne's businesses. Olivia, guilt-ridden and angry at her father for blowing her college fund on his midlife crisis affair. She was surprisingly helpful. Gave me some names, some contacts, people who knew Thorne, people who didn't particularly like him. It turns out Mr. Richard Thorne, pillar of the community, software mogul. He had a few skeletons in his very expensive closet. Shady business practices, questionable investments, a few irregularities in his tax returns. Nothing illegal, not that I could prove easily, but enough to make his investors nervous. Enough to make his board of directors uncomfortable. I didn't go to the IRS, not my style. Instead, I compiled a nice, neat little dossier, anonymous, of course, and I made sure it found its way onto the desks of a few key people. His main investors, the chairman of his board, a couple of influential financial journalists who loved a good scandal. While that was simmering, I dealt with Lisa and Emily. The divorce, it got messy. Lisa, egged on by Emily, and probably bankrolled by Thorne. She tried to fight for the house, for alimony, for everything she could get her claws on. But my lawyer was better. And the evidence of her adultery, her financial recklessness, it was undeniable. She walked away with next to nothing except Thorne, of course. For now. Emily, my darling daughter. She suddenly found her generous allowance from Thorne cut off. Seems Thorne wasn't too keen on funding the lifestyle of his mistress's greedy daughter once the affair was out in the open and starting to cause him complications. Emily had to actually get a real job, flipping burgers at a fast food joint, last I heard. Quite a step down from Gucci and Chanel. And the house, my house. Once the divorce was final, I served Lisa with an eviction notice. She had 30 days to get out. Her and her precious Thorne. The fallout from the dossier I'd circulated about Thorne was beautiful in a catastrophic dumpster fire kind of way. His investors got spooked, started pulling their money. His board of directors launched an internal investigation. The financial press started sniffing around. Thorne's carefully cultivated image as a business genius, it shattered like cheap glass. He was too busy trying to save his own skin, his own empire, to worry about his little dalliance with Lisa. The fancy dinners stopped. The shopping sprees dried up. The promises of a glamorous new life evaporated. Lisa, she tried to cling to him. But Thorne, he was a pragmatist. A liability was a liability. He cut her loose. Told her it was for the best, that he needed to focus on his business. Sound familiar? So there she was, Lisa, divorced, broke, homeless, because I made damn sure she didn't get a cent from the sale of my house, and dumped by her sugar daddy. And Emily, her dreams of Parisian holidays and a life of leisure funded by mom's rich boyfriend up in smoke. She was stuck in her burger-flipping job, living in a tiny shared apartment with a bunch of other disgruntled 20-somethings. They tried to come crawling back, of course, both of them. Lisa showed up at my workshop one day, all tears and apologies. Mike, I made a terrible mistake. I was a fool. Please, can we just talk? I just looked at her at the expensive, now slightly worn designer dress she was wearing. Probably one of Thorne's last gifts. And I felt nothing. Just a cold, hard emptiness where my love for her used to be. There's nothing to talk about, Lisa, I said. You made your choices. Now you get to live with them. I turned my back, went back to grinding a custom fender. The sound of the angle grinder, it was more honest than any word she'd ever spoken to me. Emily, she tried a different tack, sent me these long, rambling emails full of self-pity and blame. How I'd ruined her life. How I was being cruel and unforgiving. How it wasn't her fault mom was unhappy. I just deleted them. Unread. My parents, they were quiet. Too quiet. I think even they in their benighted thorn-dazzled state were starting to realize the magnitude of the mess they'd helped create. They tried to mediate, of course. Mike, can't you just forgive and forget? For the sake of, well, for old time's sake. Old time's sake. I said to my mom over the phone, the one and only time I bothered to pick up. You mean the old times when you stood by and watched my wife and my daughter sell me out? The old times when you told me I wasn't ambitious enough, wasn't rich enough? Yeah, Mom. Those old times are dead and buried. Just like any relationship I ever had with any of you. I hung up, changed my number the next day. It wasn't just about them losing their meal ticket with Thorne. It was about them losing everything. Their reputation, their comfortable little delusions. Lisa, she had to move back in with her own parents. A humiliating climb down. Emily, she's still flipping burgers, still complaining about how unfair life is. And Richard Thorne, his company's still afloat, just barely, but his reputation is mud. He's a pariah in the business community. Olivia, last I heard, she transferred to a college out of state. Put as much distance between herself and her father as possible. Can't say I blame her. Me, my little landscaping business, it's doing okay. I'm not rich. I'm not powerful, but I'm honest. I'm decent. And I sleep at night, which is more than I can say for any of them. I'll wager. Revenge, they say, is a dish best served cold. Me, I prefer it served with a side of watching their carefully constructed, money-grubbing little world crumble into dust. Not through violence, not through anything illegal, just through the truth and the inevitable consequences of their own goddamn greed and stupidity. Sometimes late at night when I'm alone in my workshop surrounded by the smell of soil and sawdust, I think about them and I don't feel anger anymore. I don't feel sadness. I just feel a quiet, diamond-hard satisfaction. They wanted a life of luxury. They wanted to play with the big boys. Well, they got burned. And me, I just kept my hands clean, kept my head down, and watched the whole damn rotten edifice collapse under the weight of its own corruption. And that, my friend, that's a kind of justice you can't put a price on. If you discovered that your own child had bartered away your 22-year marriage for a designer lifestyle, would you ever consider them your flesh and blood again, or would you treat them as the stranger they chose to become? Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Share your thoughts about this story in the comments.